is Aaron Stelle here with West and How to Be Stellar, and I'm excited today to be joined by Tony Kelly with the TLK Group at Keller Williams Realty. And on top of that, Tony is now currently going for his doctorate as well. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective on everything that's going on. Thanks for joining, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here. This should be fun.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let's start there. Like, you have taken, this time to go back and really just double down on education, and, give me kind of a brief reason why you're like, you know what, I'm in the real estate space. I want to go back and get a doctorate. And how do you think that will help you? And what have you already got out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I can tell you at 53 years old, this is not something I recommend people to take on unless they are absolutely dedicated to higher education. Getting my doctorate was a career goal that I've had. Well, I said a personal goal that I've had literally since I was in undergrad. And, this year will be my 30-year anniversary from college. So I graduated from the Air Force Academy 30 years ago. But even at that time, I've always had this thirst for knowledge and education. And I remember talking to my wife, who we just celebrated 28 years of marriage this week.
Congratulations, that is awesome.
But both of us had made that decision that when we were undergrad, that we wanted to one day go back and get our doctorate degrees. And for me, it was a matter of, I've always wanted to teach at a college level. So for my final career, my last career, my retirement career, and I'll continue to do real estate probably until I'm dead, just because I enjoy it. But for my, in my real estate or retirement career, I would like to actually teach at the college level. And specifically, I like to teach management. So I'm getting my doctorate in business administration for concentration in management. And I will say I definitely learned, I started this last summer. And so I'm 1 year in, I've probably written about 300 pages worth of papers. And during that time, I will say I've learned a lot about leadership and followership. So, looking at some of the classes that I took at the Air Force Academy on leadership back in the 1980s and, taking it to 2020 and looking at the dynamics of leadership, there's been a lot of evolution that's taken place. And that's really fun. It's fascinating for me. Understanding how leadership and followership applies to different generations, or, millennials versus Gen X, understanding the different motivational factors. How do you motivate people? And truly, I would say the biggest thing that's come out of my research and my studies over the last 30 years is that concentration on followership, understanding that, there's no such thing as a good leader without good followers. And the importance of being a good follower is literally just as important and should be celebrated just as much as being a leader. So I know that's a long tangent there. You probably didn't want to hear all that, but.
No, it's great. And, it kind of leads me down to the next part of it. And it's sort of a two-part question. The first part is, obviously you are a broker owner. So you're an owner in your, Portland Premier as well. You're a team leader. So you are working, in a leadership level, but you're also doing the studying. So how do you, number one, balance real estate in school? And number two, how have you shifted or changed your principles for leadership, both inside of your branch and inside of your team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the easy answer, I can tell you right now, how do I balance it? Literally, I don't sleep. So that's the way it goes right now. So, I wish I had a better answer, but the doctorate level, the work you're doing is so different than undergrad, so different than when I got my MBA. When I started this, I was thinking oh, well, it's probably just the next step up from a master's degree. It's light years away from that. So I sleep about 4 hours a week, 4 hours a day. But how I've actually tried to utilize what I've been learning, so much more on when it comes down to learning the different principles of leadership and how to properly apply those to really get the best out of your people. So I would say, prime example, transformational leadership. This is one of the approaches that's really taken off since the 1980s. And one of the components of that transformational leadership is understanding the individualized consideration. In other words, how do I make my people the best that they can be by showing them personalized care, personalized, making sure they're hitting their motivations and hitting their goals. But I'm taking that down not from a transactional perspective where it's you do this for me, I give you this. It's I really want to make you the best person you can be. I want you to achieve your goals beyond what you think you can actually do. Versus in a transactional relationship where it's like, hey, you're expecting this outcome if you do this work. I'm trying to get people to the next level from that. So that's how I try to take, some of this into account when I'm actually dealing with not just my team, but even when I'm dealing with my clients. It's like, I truly want to understand what their individualized motivations are. So that's one way I've been able to use a little bit of this.
So kind of moving on from the old school carrot and the stick model, like do you beat them or you give them some? It's a little bit more in depth. So have you created a formal process, or is it mostly done through conversation, or how do you really go about doing that, like with your team or with your clients?
Yeah, I would say right now, it's more of through conversations, and even my team has completely changed. So I probably would have been forced to do much more of a formalized process when I was still running my large team. Now I've downsized to a really small team, so I can have these individual conversations versus having a formal process in place. So, and then with my clients, it's always been, I've always looked at just trying to provide, and I've always instilled in my people on the team, we truly want to be the best service providers that we can be for our clients. Not just, hey, let's get this transaction done, and we don't talk to you until like 3-4 years from now. We've always had an attitude that we want to say, we're your agent for life. So with that, what can we do to be your agent for life? We always want to be top of mind with our clients, even when they're not thinking about selling, because a lot of my business it's based on referrals. So that's always been a really important thing for us. So understanding what our clients' individual motivations are, it's pretty much always been part of my business.
So you mentioned something in there, at one point, not in the too distant past, like you were running a big team, you were getting into the expansion, you were hitting other markets, like you were spending a ton of time, basically money, yeah, building these things out. And then on top of that, really just having to work on admin and HR the whole time. And I know recently we've had conversations and you're like, nope, I'm going lean and mean, I'm scrapping that. Like, give me a little insight as to why you decided to go that direction. And now that you've been in it for a little while, like what have your results been?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So actually 2 years ago, my team was right at about 14 or 15 people. So almost the size of some of these little boutique offices around here in Portland. That's what I was running. And at that time, I was really not in production as far as an individual agent. So that's why, I had been out of production probably for about 4 or 5 years, like true production. So when you look at my numbers, so like just Tony Kelly, it's not coming across as these big, oh, wow, he does $40-50 million a year. One, because I never ran any of the people on my team, their production through me. So other people do that. I'm not knocking that, but that's just not something I ever did. So, I was out of production except for doing personal referrals, friends and things like that. And I was just running full time managing this big team. And I had an expansion office up in Vancouver, Washington. That was like a really popular thing for the company that I'm associated with. And I was essentially, ticking the boxes off of ththese different systems that are being prescribed for agent success. If you want to be a big time agent, you need to do this. You got to grow your team. You got to have the expansion. You want to get to like this particular level where you're no longer in production. And what I found after doing that, and I've been doing this real estate with almost 18 years now. So I've had small teams, I've had medium-sized teams, and that was the largest team that I had. And I would say, even though our numbers were like fantastic on the gross, I was miserable because all I was doing was literally doing the management and not in I was doing the day-to-day management, not in the actual production. And I was really just doing HR. I mean, you're just constantly hiring and firing, coaching, hiring and firing. And it just gets to be this carousel of just misery, at least for me. Now, other people do this and they do it very well, and I absolutely support that. But for me, I found that I wasn't necessarily happy doing that. And then financially, even though you have this huge top line number, your net operating it's not what you think it is, put it that way.
Well,
So,
so
what you're actually netting versus what you're grossing are two totally different numbers. And I found that when I had a smaller team, I was actually netting a lot more. So anyway, I made the conscious decision about 2 years ago to start downsizing the team. And actually it was kind of fortuitous because coming into the pandemic that we're just, that we're in right now, my team was actually well positioned. So it's just me, I have 2 other people, and it's exactly where I want it to be. I'm very happy. Will I grow it later on? Honestly, I don't know. I never say never, because one of the things I've always done is I've always evolved, and I've always kind of gone with try to position my business so that we can be properly leveraged for the particular market that we're dealing with. So right now I'm doing great. I mean, the team is very profitable. I hate to say, even during this time right now, I mean, certainly sales are down, but we're doing very well.
But I do think that's an important message. One of the conversations we've been having with our clients is there is still a need to transact real estate, right? Like, there are people that need to move. There are people that are changing jobs. There are people that are just having life changes in general, and then on the other side of that, you've got phenomenal rates and things right now. So there can be some things where you can use this time to really set yourself up in a better spot moving down, like kind of moving forward. So, as a broker owner, you obviously get to see more numbers like out there than what like the average agent would see. Like, what are you seeing from even like a brokerage or more of a macro level?
Yeah, I would say we're definitely seeing numbers are down. I mean, we have to be very realistic here. The average, new listings have decreased 30% from the same time last year, from May to May. Closed sales have decreased 34%. So that is definitely happening. But what we're also seeing is, if you look at the difference between May and April, we're definitely starting to see an uptick as well. And so from a brokerage perspective, our office, our listing numbers have gone up, our transactions have gone up, and our closed sales have gone up from April to May. So not from this time to last year, but just looking at our little window right now, things are definitely going up. And I hope they will continue to go up as we come out of this hibernation that we've been forced to do. I will say one of the takeaways, though, there's a couple of different takeaways. One, we're starting to see more people who are becoming much more comfortable with utilizing technology in their transactions. When I started in this business 18 years ago, we were still, fax technology was like the latest trend. It's like you literally have people driving around with their portable fax machines in their car, and that was like cutting edge. But then we didn't have this thing called the cloud. We have the cloud now, where you can literally do everything from your home office. And so you're definitely, I don't think we're going to go back to having large offices with a large amount of agents in those individual offices. I think you're going to see, one of the takeaways, you'll probably see downsized offices and a lot more virtual offices that are going to be as a result of this. Because we've proven that we can get the work done. Agents are still being productive, and they're getting that work done. The other thing I think you're going to see is people actually doing a better job of prospecting and qualifying. So, and what I mean by that is, it used to be, before all this, hey, you got that call, hey, I want to go see this, you got this listing, I'd like to see this house at so-and-so time. And as an agent, you drop everything and you drive over there. And then you meet this person, then you find out like, oh, you already have an agent, or you're not pre-qualified, and you have no hope of ever getting qualified. So those are time sinks, right? And agents fall into that trap when times are good, of like, oh yeah, I just got to go out there and grab this business. Where now we're being much more prudent about the use of our time, and understanding that, like, hey, are you qualified? Are you working with an agent? Is this the right area that you want to be in? Oh, you're not looking for another 3 years? It's like, no, we're not doing that anymore. So I'm hoping that's one of the long-term takeaways, not just for my team, but for agents in my office as well.
Yeah, we've actually been hearing that a lot, where it's, this is the one nice thing is this has made people more efficient or effective in what they're doing, whether it be, instead of giving little teasers to get a bunch of people through that will never actually buy that property, they're like, no, let's give them the information they need. So if they're actually going to go in there and potentially expose, people to this risk of currently the virus. But the thing that I'm starting to see as we're coming out of this, like, let's take that risk portion away. That's all time that's also being taken away, right? And so risk equals time in a lot of cases on a go forward basis. So are there any other things that you're doing to kind of change your model or how you operate with people?
Not necessarily. I mean, I wish I could like give these little wise nuggets here, but I will say a part of this is the fact that as I transition my team from a very large team to a much smaller team, and this is by design, my focus, I really want to get back to the customer focus that we used to have as a team before we got really big. And you can say like, oh, well, we're a large team and we still are customer focused. And it's like, you can only be so customer focused when you're dealing with large numbers of transactions like we were at that time. And so I, dedicated myself to, hey, as we get smaller here and, I got back into production by design, I really wanted to make sure that I was providing the best customer experience I possibly could. And that's definitely helping us through this transaction, because even when the lockdown took place, whereas a lot of people, their phone stopped ringing, their clients were like, hey, we're just going to wait. My clients trusted me enough that they knew I was going to take the proper precautions to protect their health as we were still out there looking for homes, or when they were listing their home with me. I have built up that trust with them because of my relationship with them.
Which, and that's what we are seeing is there is that portion where relationship and trust is becoming so important to guide you through something that's somewhat uncertain. So I'll get you out of here real quick, and I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit because this is always sort of fun. One of my new things, as you've probably seen, is I'm kind of launching my How to Be Stellar stuff. And so what I really like to do with this at the very end is if you could say one thing, and whether it be personal or business or client facing or whatever that is, on how people out there can be stellar, what would that be?
Be kind. I know that sounds really lame, but I'm telling you, the climate that we're working in right now with all that's happening in the world, just be good to each other. Be good to your clients, be good to other agents, be good to your family. Just try to make an actual effort to be kind.
I love it, man. I love it. Thanks, my man. I really do appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Aaron. Talk to you soon.